So I really love blunt bobs, like a sleek line, really straight and structured. I have seen the trend sort of going away from that, little bits here and there. So I want to do something that I've been doing more of behind the chair, which is like a shattered perimeter, a little bit more layers, and a curtain bang. And one of the reasons I feel that, and this is just my theory behind it, that curtain bangs are kind of coming back in, is this shag is such a cool haircut, but a lot of people don't want to commit fully to that. So then their curtain bang is kind of that, like, I'm still trendy, but I don't lose all this up front. So a curtain bang is kind of like a cool way to stay on trend without fully going into the shag world. So let's get started. First things first, I'm gonna separate out where I want my bang. So I want to figure out my client. Let's do it high drama today, okay? So let's pretend she wants a really thick one, curtain bang, and you want to decide where you want that to come from. So we're gonna do it from her apex, which is the highest part of her head, which is kind of like where the comb separates. So that's where I'm gonna separate my part from. Curtain bangs, it's not exclusive to a middle part, but that is where they look the best. So that's something to talk to your client about, is if they are like a heavily side parter, just kind of say like, hey, just so you know, like it's gonna separate here instead of here. So it'll still be a curtain, but kind of like a lopsided one. So comb it forward. And I'm just going to separate this and clip it away because I want to focus on this last. Okay. All right. I'm going to use it as my guide. The mirror is a great tool. And then I'm going to lift your head up and see if it stops at the same point. So this stops, like, let's say here. This one is here. So I'm good with that sectioning for our curtain bang. I'm just going to clip that away for later. And I like to cut bobs starting in the back, just because I feel like that's where I can decide the length for all around. So I'm going to turn her around. And I'm big into sectioning because I feel that you don't get lost as much. And then if you do get lost, it's really easy to find out where you messed up, or where you need to not mess up necessarily, but go back and fix a couple things. So I'm going to separate the back from the front. And so now my sectioning is like that right now. And still, this would be too much hair to put into one section. So I am gonna go up horizontally with sections as I go. All right, and one of the things that I think is the most important with any hair cutting and any perimeter in general, but especially bobs, because you can see it, is having them tilt their head down while you cut all the way until the occipital bone. So she doesn't have a big like bone that sticks out, and everyone does have a little bit of a different size of one, but the hair can actually be longer underneath there if you cut with her head up and then she tilts her head down, and all those hairs have room to spread out and they get longer. So I always cut up until the occipital bone with their head down. All right. I'm going to take this all the way up to here because I want a high drama bob. And I kind of always start in the middle and then work out to the sides. And I'm point cutting because I want it to be pretty textured on those ends. And one of the things that can happen without a stylist really even knowing is over direction. So this, I pulled down straight like this. And this one, I don't know if you saw, but I pulled it this way a little bit. And now look, perfect. And then long. So over direction will create length. If you want it, great. If you don't want it, it's not so great. So you really have to be careful to, if you're trying to cut at natural fall, to really stick with that. Because if you over direct on accident, even if you hold it in your finger and you pull that way a little bit, it'll be longer on that side. And then hopefully you catch it quick. But if you don't, then that's, you know, an extra 20, 30 minutes to your haircut at the end, trying to find what happened. So comb straight down. Sometimes I'll comb and then push the back of the comb into the head like that, just so that the hair sticks. If she had skin, this hair would be stuck, and I would want that. I want it to be like nice and flush to her skin. Be careful not to over direct. And then double check the line at this length. Again, just so that you don't get to the end and you're like, oh man. So I check all the time to make sure everything's even from side to side. And this will probably be my last section with her head down. Because we're right up at that bone. And just try to pay attention to, as I go, my wrists. So I try really hard not to bend them. So I'm not in there going like this. I'm trying, and that's, I also, a swivel, I know it's kind of weird the first time you use it, but a swivel I feel like is a game changer with your wrist. So anything, you want to keep it pretty straight. And I love that. So now I'm going to lift your head up. And just keep moving up horizontally. If this was any sort of an angle, I would be doing diagonal sections, but this is going to be more like a classic, even front to back bob. So now I can use my fingers because the hair is already elevated. So if you can see, it kind of sticks out. And I want that shape. So I can put my fingers in there because I'm already not messing up those hairs. And then just keep going with the point cutting. And I'm moving her as I go because I want to be standing in front of the section. So if this is a client in my chair, I'm moving my body around her. So I'm standing right behind the hair that I'm cutting. But since she's very easily movable, I'm just moving her instead.
Such an important little tip there, because when we move our bodies, we add that movement to the haircut. If we stand in one place, we're likely to over direct to that place, add weight and length, not doing it on purpose.
And then another thing too that I just caught myself doing is, like, I feel that I pulled this hair with more tension than perhaps I did the rest of them. So I just wanted to go through and check that it's all the same length, because if you are pulling it a little bit more intent, you can actually end up creating shorter hair in that spot. So you want to be mindful of that as well. And if someone had finer hair, could I go up and do a little bit thinner sections? Yes, and I would, but I still feel that you should be taking some sort of sectioning as you cut the hair. And even if it was fine enough that you can see it all the way to the bottom, you run a little bit bigger risk that way. So small sections, small mistakes. Okay, so I'm just gonna look at any hairs that are, because I am point cutting kind of like freehand like that. I just want to make sure that there's not like a cluster of hair that I missed. And this hair that I'm cutting right now, chances are it's all going to be part of layers. But it's still refreshing to know you have a clean perimeter. So I still always will kind of bring this down. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and layer the back a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit. And so I like to start in the center. And for this cut, I like to do a square layer because it keeps the perimeter, we already kind of point cutted it, but it keeps it sturdy and structured, not blunt, but just so that they feel like they have hair at the bottom. So by doing a square layer, all that hair at the bottom falls out, and then they get a little bit of movement in the crown, or in the occipital bone. So, and then I split that in half, and this one I'm going to be doing a traveling guide. If I did a stationary guide, that's over directing, and then it'll create these layers longer than this one. If I do a traveling guide, then each layer is going to be about the same. So I'm going to pull my guide over to the next section. You can see those couple hairs right there. So I'm going to let the bottom fall out. And then I move over to this side. I like to go 1, 1, 1, 1, because I also feel that it makes double checking easier. Bring it over to this side. Those layers are starting to look really, really fun. And this is still pretty structured. Come over here, let the bottom fall out, and now I just have that corner to cut. come over here. And then that corner. And then this one is really important because you have to drop out that bottom hair, because that's the perimeter. So once that's gone, you're okay. You know there's not going to be a hole. But if you accidentally cut that, there's a major hole. So this side, there's a little rainbow right there that we've got to cut. And then the last one over here. Little, oop. And you can see there's a guide and there's a guide. So that's how you know. Yeah.
I love it.
Connect them. And then if you look, super fun, not shaggy, but it's not blunt. You're kind of living in a happy medium between the two. And it's really, really trendy, cute with flat iron waves. It's not your stereotypical, like, I do have a kid in soccer. I did, but like soccer mom bob. Okay. So shout out to the soccer moms. But this is like more, you could style it really, really fun, trendy, fresh. Now moving to the sides, and like I do everything side to side at the same time. So I section off that side. I'm also going to section off this side so that I don't do one side of the haircut and then a totally different haircut on the other side. All right. So this I feel is just, everyone does the ears a little bit different. People do the tap tap. That really does work. I like to separate around the ear because then I feel like it's less room for difference. If I tap one side harder or barely tap the other side, I feel like if I separate around the ear, there's really not a lot of room for mistakes or differences. So on a human, it'll be pretty obvious where their hair separates around the ear. The hair wants to go this way and the hair wants to go that way. So on this one, it's a little bit hard, but you can kind of see this hair has a little bit of a bend that way, and then this starts to go straight down. So that's where I separate it from. And I pull this around the ear like that and down. As long as I can see my guide from the back, I cut it. Now, normally I wouldn't be like bending my body in this way. I'd be standing in front of the section. Pull that behind the ear. And then what I do is take one of the hairs from behind the ear, pull it in front of the ear, and then cut that. Point cut, connect to that line. And one of the things I like to do is make sure that this line is the same as that line so that I know it's straight, it's not doing any sneaky angles on me. So now the other side. Separate it behind the ear, find the guide, and point cut. Super cute. Double check. And we're good. Sure, that is the same. behind the ear and in front of the ear. And then this will probably be my last section, so it's easy to drop those. You always want to comb where the hair lives. So this section, it was a triangle. So this hair up here, I could comb it down forward, but then it would end up being longer that way. So comb it down to where it wants to live and see how much hair is in this back section. So if I were to comb that this way, that would create a little bit of a problem. So comb it to where it wants to live. And then we eliminate that problem. And then at this point, it's such a fine section, so your guide is pretty obvious.
Looking great, Casey. Great stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. It's my favorite thing to do. Okay. Now we have a little bit of disconnect with layers. You could keep it that way if you want to, because we're doing curtain bangs, so we are going to have some fun up front. I do think that would make this a little bit heavy right here though. So because it's a square layer, it's pretty easy to find your guide from the other section. And then I would just go in, make sure the perimeter drops out, and get into that. We're not trying to do like really, really heavily layered bob, but just enough to where it's not all one length. So hair drops out and just point cut into that. And with these, you can kind of take your guide based on just the hair that drops out. So you don't need to grab a guide from the previous section because it's pretty obvious that right there, that short hair is what you need to drop out and everything else is just easy peasy to find. So that drops out. We cut into there. She keeps bending. A little bit right there. Right there. That all feels really good to me. So I'm going to move on to the curtain bangs. I'm going to shorten her a little bit. So there's 100,000 ways to do curtain bangs. I don't know if anyone sees all the videos on Instagram, and I watch them and I'm like, that is such a cool way to do it. And that's not how I do it. And then I try it and then you change your ways. So just, I would, if we do curtain bangs a lot, or if you do them a lot, find what way is most comfortable for you, that makes the most sense, and just kind of do that way, and then take everything else in, and but still do it is most comfortable for you. Like I love watching the twist videos, but like I don't know if I could be consistent enough with that. So I don't do it that way, but at the same time, I love watching them. So for this, I clipped the other hair out of the way, and I'm going to do it in panels, vertical panels. So with a curtain bang, it is like tapered, almost like a regular classic tapered bang, but in the way that my mind works, it's also layered. So it's a layer, it's like a separate haircut right up front in my head. So I go down the middle, take a middle part all the way from the crown, and then I decide where I want her shortest piece to be. So let's say she wants it to be like mid eyebrow. We'll go for more drama. I'm gonna find that piece, cut where she would want the shortest piece. And now nothing's gonna be shorter than that. I already know that. And now this is all just gonna be connected with that short piece. And if I cut it this way, it also layers it at the same time. So find that shortest piece. And that's already looking super shaggy, super curtainy. So now I'm going to separate that to the other side and bring this over. But now because I want length, because it's a curtain bang, it has to get longer, I'm going to pull it to this side. So I still use that middle thing for that middle hair for the guide, but I'm going to pull it, which over direction creates length. And then you want to try to remember exactly where you pull it from so that when you do this on the other side, you don't get lost. So you could either say, okay, mid eyebrow, or you could say, okay, this hair is pointing to that flower pot. So because I know the flower pot's not going to move, well, that's not going to work on that side because there's not a flower pot over there. That would work if it was like the ceiling, I think. But so then I'll go mid eyebrow. So I'm going to pull it over, mid eyebrow, cut. It's really hard to, but try not to go past your second knuckle. Okay. And now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm splitting the curtain bangs up into 3 sections. And I want to get rid of that section, so that's just going to mess me up. Pull it over. Mid eyebrow, point cut. Okay, and I'll take my last section. Over direct. Mid eyebrow. And this side. Flip over. Might be a little too far mid eyebrow. There we go. And we got high drama, high layers. This one. Okay. So now when you style this and you curl it, these are going to go back. This is going to get fluffed up. And it's like layered, kind of fun. Dang. Connect that a little bit. right there. Okay. Super fun. Messy bang. And now I'll get it dried and styled. Okay.
I think that we can skip.
The style.
Well, I would love for you to still finish it and send pictures, and we can post them.
Okay.
If that's okay. It gets a little difficult when doing the blow dryer if you're talking over the top of it.
Okay.
So it's completely up to you. And I guess if people don't want to watch you blow dry, then they can just leave actually too.
Okay.
I mean that in a good way. Like if you don't want to watch her blow dry, then have a great day. Thanks for joining us. Otherwise,
She's mostly dry, but
we're gonna
I'll
watch
keep going.
it out. They're saying they want to see, so let's do it.
Okay. All right. Like she's mostly dry. And the materials.
Everybody wants to see it styled, so I'll just stay out of the way for the rest of the class.
Big time back and forth. Big time back and forth. Same thing with the back. Anything that you want to lay straight down, back and forth, back and forth. This hair, it goes this way, so I'm going to push it that way for volume.
So while she's blow drying, we had a question asked, what if someone wanted to grow out their curtain bangs? And something that's really fantastic about this style of shorter in the middle, longer on the sides, is you've really preserved a lot of the length through the edges of the bangs. So you have a really good starting point when it comes to growing them out. It just takes time. Like all hair that's short, the hardest part of a grow out is allowing the time for it to grow out properly. So as you can see, she's really working the hair rough drying, right? Everything about this is textured, lived in, worn, messy. So you don't see her sticking a round brush in there and really starting to polish the cut or anything like that. She's really accentuating with heat and product what she had already cut into the hair. So we're just emphasizing that texture, movement, and shape. We're not trying to polish it. It would go completely against what we were doing by point cutting and the whole look of the curtain bangs as well. So you see the way she's using her brush. One, she's using a smaller brush so she can get volume and movement in it. Again, not really polishing with the round brush, drying to give volume, but doing it in a way to make sure you maintain that texture and movement throughout the haircut and the bangs.
Yes. And with this, so this part I blow dry down, and then when I get to the sides, I blow dry it back. But you can also do with a flat iron when it comes time to finish it.
What blow dryer are you using?
That's a T3. I like it.
That's the letter T and the number 3.
Yeah, they have like a cool little curling iron set that's a little bit cooler. So you buy the base and then you can buy different handles, which is partly why I kind of liked it. So you're not plugging in tools all day. You just kind of change the handle if you want.
Nice.
And it's kind of cool for clients too, because I love all the brands that are everywhere, but that brand's at Costco too. So a lot of clients are like, oh, cool, I could just get it at Costco.
So it's something they can get themselves and they're not paying hundreds of dollars for.
Yes.
Very cool. Which is something great to talk about. You know, we have some schools watching. If you're a student, part of being able to help a client goes above and beyond just doing their hair, right? It can come down to tools that we referred them to use, making sure the tools are simple to use so they can recreate the look at home that we're creating in the salon.
For sure. And it's also good to talk to them about quality of stuff too. So even like if they don't want the T3 or anything that like we use in the salon, you could still say, as long as you don't ever want to make someone feel bad if they don't have the most professional stuff. But the only thing I'll say, if I know someone maybe doesn't want to spend $100, $200 on a flat iron, is if there's a heat setting, it's better than if there's not. So if your flat iron just turns on and off, or your curling iron just turns on and off, chances are you're just burning your hair, because it's going to go to the hottest to work for everybody, right? But some people's hair doesn't need it that hot. So that's one of the main things I say is like, just make sure that there's either a temperature setting you can choose or like low, medium, hot.
Fantastic. Great advice. Tools are such an important part of what we're about to do, you know, and as a student, you know, investing in great tools from the beginning, if you do it properly, you only have to invest a couple of times in a blow dryer your entire career, or you only have to invest in a shear one time in your life, you know, things like that. So, you know,
sure.
Be sure to do your research. There's amazing companies out there in our industry that do a fantastic job of creating tools that are ergonomically friendly for artists, but also they do a lot for our industry, giving back, doing education, all kinds of fun things. So make sure you really understand who a brand is and what they stand for before you start spending your hard-earned money with them.
Yeah. So with these bangs, I'm going to flat iron a little bit more down, and this I'm going to curl out to the side. And that's another thing too, in consultation, a lot of people want a curtain bang right now, but do they really? Yeah. You know, are you going to wake up and just put a bobby pin in it because you don't want to style it, or are you going to blow dry your hair? So chances are if they sleep, however anyone sleeps, really, your hair's going to wake up and be kind of different. So are you, in the consultation, like, okay, well, are you prepared to wet your bangs down in the morning and blow dry it? No, I don't think I'll do that. I'm in a hurry in the morning, whatever the case may be. And then, well, maybe let's do longer layers then up front. So you still have some fun up front, but not a bang. And then if they're dead set on the bang, just make sure you cover like your end, saying, okay, well, you might be styling a little bit more than normal, or on a day you get frustrated, you might just throw it in a bobby pin. And then if they're like, okay, I'm good with that, then you kind of did your job and you explained the difference in the maintenance. Or you could suggest a longer curtain bang. Like this one's a pretty short one. But I'm not way down. And then this one, you're going to wing it. And that's what people want to see. That's what attracts people to this curtain bang, is that like Farrah Fawcett, edgy, like Pat Benatar type haircut. If their hair was longer, like if they had longer layers and not necessarily a curtain bang, you could blow dry it in too. Bend that back. And then I kind of like to do that first so that while I'm just kind of styling the rest of their hair, they're already seeing how fun the front is. And then they're not like, you want them to be paying attention to how you're styling their hair, but also have them excited about what they're looking at. So in the rest of this, I'm into like minimalist, I guess, with these layered haircuts. So you don't want to do super classic curls, because then their hair would end up being so short and just like 1920s ish, which is beautiful, but not so edgy, trendy. So I just go over under. This hair I might do one of these so that we accentuate that front part. Other than that, over under. And sometimes your clients will be like, oh my gosh, that's so easy. And you're like, yeah, it is. And then they feel like they can do it at home. And then if your client can do their hair really well, you'll get more clients with hair like theirs, because, you know, they're at Costco and someone's like, wow, your hair looks great. And then they just drop your name.
I was always told, it was almost like instilled into us in school, you know, your client is a walking billboard. So whenever they leave, you want to give them a style that, you know, they can reproduce at least to some extent. So when they leave the house and they're walking around, people say, oh my, who did your hair? Like they're your biggest billboard. So recreate the, you know, make it easier for them to recreate the look. People will ask them who does their hair.
Sure. So over, under, over. I always like to have the bottom be the straight part, just to avoid being super like curly Q, like straight ends for some of these looks. But at the same time, if your client shows you want to kind of style it like the picture they showed, so that they feel like they got that cut. You could totally do the same cut. And if you style it different, they might be like, this isn't what I asked for, because that's what they're looking at. They don't necessarily always look at the way the layers are. They look at how the hair falls, like how it's curled. And that's something you have to talk about. Just 2 days ago, my client and I spent 20 minutes on Pinterest trying to find a picture of what she wanted. Because initially, she showed a curly picture, but she wears her hair straight. So we thought I've been doing hair for 11 years, and we still kind of had this mistake in the consultation where I cut her hair, and then she's like, is this going to look good straight? And I was like, yes, it will. But she hadn't seen it straight. And so I was like, well, I stopped cutting. I'm like, we're going to find a picture of this haircut straight so you can actually see what I'm doing. Because if you're not going to curl your hair, it'll never look like this. And so we sat there and we scrolled, and then we kind of changed our game plan based on that. So had I just done it and curled her hair like the photo, she would hate it. The next time she washed her hair, she'd be mad at me. So that's something that you have to kind of say, do you style your hair like this? And if they say no, then say, okay, well, then we need to find a different picture. That was 2 days ago.
Hello.
Hello. So pulling these bangs forward. Curling it back. There too. And then I would just spend some time kind of positioning this, and they're kind of watching you while you do it in a minute or two. I like to show off those layers right in the top like that. And then also make sure that you separate those wings so that they feel like they got that curtainy vibe. Let me get texture spray. And right now, really, I'm just looking for some separation. And then on a real client, I would blow dry this like a little bit flatter so it's not so, and then that would kind of accentuate that. But it's just our little textured bob. See how big that is? I would just push it down. And then that already looks so much cuter in the perimeter. So when I'm taking pictures of that, because I'm a big picture taker, I'll do a cute little ear tuck and tilt their head down to the side, tuck it, make sure the bangs are in a position that I think shows them off, and then get that picture. So
Looks great.
And then another thing too, which I just learned this, if someone doesn't necessarily want their face in the picture, which if they do, I love face pictures if they're down for it, but if they're not, a good thing you can do is over the shoulder and to the side and pull this hair forward. So this is just hair, it's all hair, or totally to the side. If they have long hair, this is a good one. Have them bend a little and look this way. And then you pull all the hair over their face. If they have a really pretty blend, then it's like so much hair, less body. So if the head's forward, hair looks bigger, body looks smaller, your clients will feel more flattered, and then you show off the hair more too. So with bobs, I like to show always a little bit of how the back is. So that's why my favorite is a side photo, because you get a little bit of the front and a little bit of the back. But that's probably my go-to bob pose, is like that little turn. I lift this hair up and take a picture. Sound good?
Looks fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, lots of praise over here from everybody. So the great job. Thank you so much. Everyone,
Well,
thank you for joining us.
Sorry. I do try to post educational stuff. I was talking really earlier about just like being in kind of a social media. I haven't been posting a lot, but I do post a lot of educational stuff on my Instagram, which is Hot Sauce Hair. So if you head over there, just kind of scroll, and there should be some good gems in there for hair cutting.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Casi.
Thank you for having me.
Have a wonderful day. To all of you out there, thank you. We appreciate it. Have a great day. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.